Welcome to another episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your cosmic host, Dom, and in this episode we take a look at the 2016 Canadian Lovecraftian horror film, written and directed by Steve Kostanski and Jeremy Gillespie, The Void. When Sheriff Deputy Carter discovers a blood-soaked man limping down a deserted road, he rushes him to a local hospital with a bare-bones night shift staff. As cloaked, cult-like figures surround the building, the patients and staff inside start to turn ravenously insane. Trying to protect the survivors, Carter leads them into the depths of the hospital where they discover a gateway to immense evil. We're doing a deep dive into cosmic horror on our YouTube channel, Out from the Horrorbox. So once you're done listening here, go check out the video there. For now, let us transcend into The Void. Since the early 2000s, the Winnipeg-based Canadian filmmaking collective known as Astron 6 had carved out a niche by creating a series of wildly inventive, ultra-low-budget comedic horror films that paid loving homage to the VHS-era genre cinema of the 1980s. Their filmography, which included the cyberpunk pastiche Manborg, the revenge thriller Father's Day, and the Giallo-inspired The Editor, was defined by a specific tone of absurdist humor and deliberate, stylized camp. The Void, conceived by Astron 6 members Jeremy Gillespie and Stephen Kostanski, was a radical departure, a deadly serious, dread-soaked cosmic horror film. This significant shift in tone was so pronounced that the filmmakers made the conscious decision to release it not under the established Astron 6 brand, but as a standalone work to properly set audience expectations. The initial inspiration for the film's distinctive aesthetic came from an unexpected source. Jeremy Gillespie was working at Pinewood Toronto Studios on a film, on a floor directly below where Guillermo del Toro was developing his ultimately unfinished adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. Gillespie recalls hearing del Toro state his ambition to realize Lovecraftian horror on a screen in a way that had never been done before. That declaration, Gillespie noted, sort of got the wheels of my mind working, trying to think of what that might be. So that was sort of where the imagery was birthed. All the stuff relating to pyramids and triangles is left ambiguous for the audience to interpret as they would intentionally. This philosophy became central to the film's enigmatic and haunting visual identity. To bring their ambitious vision of practical creature effects to life, Gillespie and Kostanski turned to crowdfunding, successfully raising the necessary capital to build the film's array of grotesque and otherworldly beings entirely with traditional physical effects, a defiant stand against the CGI norm. Further, crucial assistance came from the industry project filming in Toronto at the same time, David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Both Gillespie and Kostanski were employed on that blockbuster, Gillespie as an assistant art director and Kostanski as a special makeup effects artist. These positions allowed them to recruit talented members of Suicide Squad's own special effects team to work on The Void during their off hours, lending a major studio level of craftsmanship to the micro-budgeted production. Despite this talented crew, Gillespie later declared The Void an immensely difficult shoot, noting that every single thing was the biggest challenge. It was a soul-crushing nightmare. Everybody had pushed to the limit on this movie. The one ray of hope we got was the cast, which came together at the last second. They were easy to deal with, and principal photography was set to commence in Canada on November 17th, 2015. Concurrent with production, the film sales agents were securing its future, with the American film market a key event for independent film distribution. The sales company XYZ Films and Creative Artists Agency were set to handle North American distribution deals, a significant vote of confidence that helped generate early industry buzz for the project. The primary location for the film was former Sir James Dunn Collegiate and Vocational School in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. The abandoned, cavernous school provided the perfect atmospheric setting for the film's besieged hospital, its long, dark hallways and empty rooms inherently invoking the desired feeling of isolation and dread. The production secured access just in time. The historic school was scheduled for demolition and was finally razed in 2016, making The Void the final project ever filmed within its walls. So let's see what terror comes from The Void.
I can see it all before me. You won't get far.
I need hands up front for your stretcher. Where'd you find this guy?
Give you a copy of Code 3 and I need assist.
Daniel? Who are they?
There is something calling them all here. I've seen this place before. Everything has led to this. You will become something remarkable.
They did killings and sacrifices. They made people change.
Nothing else matters now.
It's not real. It's not real. This isn't the end.
Statistically, you're more likely to die in a hospital than anywhere else.
A terrified man named James, played by Evan Stern, flees from a remote farmhouse, escaping into the shadowy, dense woods. A screaming woman attempts to follow him but is shot and wounded by his pursuers. As she lies helpless on the ground, two figures, Vincent and Simon, played by Daniel Fathers and Mike by Scove, respectively, douse her in gasoline and set her ablaze in a brutal execution. Meanwhile, Deputy Sheriff Daniel Carter, played by Aaron Poole, is on a lonely night patrol when he discovers the bloodied and traumatized James crawling along the deserted road. He rushes him to the nearest medical facility, the largely abandoned Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, which is operating with a skeleton crew after a devastating fire. The hospital staff includes Daniel's estranged wife, Nurse Allison Fraser, the authoritative Dr. Richard Powell, nurses Beverly and Kim, a pregnant patient named Maggie, her elderly grandfather Ben, and another patient, Cliff. They are played by Kathleen Monroe, Kenneth Welsh, Stephanie Belding, Ellen Wong, Grace Monroe, James Millington, and Matt Kennedy, respectively. The tense atmosphere is shattered when Daniel discovers Nurse Beverly in a trance-like state, her face horrifically flayed of skin, murdering the patient Cliff. As the monstrous Beverly advances on him, Daniel shoots her dead. The shock and stress trigger a violent seizure in Daniel, during which he experiences a bizarre and terrifying vision. A state trooper named Mitchell, played by Art Hindle, arrives at the hospital to collect James after discovering the gruesome, bloody scene at the farmhouse. Daniel steps outside to his patrol car to call in Beverly's death, but is ambushed tackled and stabbed by a robed cultist. He barely manages to stagger back inside the hospital as a horde of similar cultists emerge from the darkness to surround the building. Inside, James, the wounded Daniel, and Trooper Mitchell make a horrifying discovery. Beverly's corpse has undergone a grotesque metamorphosis, transforming into a twitching, tentacled creature. Suddenly, Vincent and Simon burst into the lobby, holding the group at gunpoint and demanding they hand over James. In a panic, James takes the pregnant Maggie hostage to protect himself and, in the ensuing struggle, stabs Dr. Powell, who collapses and appears to die. The Beverly creature reappears, ensnaring Mitchell with its tentacles, which violently penetrate his body. Vincent and Simon manage to kill the creature, and then set Mitchell's body on fire to prevent a similar transformation. Vincent and Simon accompany Daniel outside to retrieve a shotgun from the patrol car, while Allison ventures alone into the hospital's dark, foreboding basement to gather medical supplies for Maggie's impending delivery. Down below, Dr. Powell, who is very much alive, ambushes and captures Allison. Daniel and Vincent begin searching for her and stumble upon a hidden office containing photographs and files that reveal Dr. Powell is the sinister leader of the murderous cult. Powell then phones Daniel from the in-house morgue, taunting him and cryptically referencing the strange vision Daniel had experienced earlier. Back upstairs, Kim and Ben stay with a laboring Maggie while Daniel, Vincent, and Simon interrogate a trembling James. He explains that Powell possesses a terrifying power to transform people into monstrous entities. The three men force James to lead them downstairs to find Allison. Meanwhile, Allison regains consciousness on an operating table, where skinless Powell explains he discovered a way to defy death after the tragic loss of his daughter, Sarah. He reveals that he has flayed off his own face and shows Allison that a grotesque, otherworldly something now grows inside her belly. Daniel's group finds a hidden area in the basement, but quickly finds themselves surrounded by reanimated, deformed corpses. In the chaotic attack, one of the creatures kills James, and the three surviving men are separated throughout the catacombs. As Maggie's labor intensifies, the intern Kim hesitates to perform an emergency C-section. While Ben pleads with her to help, Maggie suddenly stands up and slits the old man's throat, coldly revealing she is carrying Dr. Powell's unnatural child. Kim hides in terror as cultists swarm the building, and Maggie calmly leaves to join Powell. Daniel finally finds Allison in the operating room, now heavily and unnaturally pregnant. A tentacled creature extends from her body, and Powell's voice speaks through her. Horrified and enraged, Daniel attacks his wife's mutated remains with a fire axe. This act transports him to a sterile morgue room dominated by a glowing, otherworldly triangle on the wall. Powell's disembodied voice explains that he conquered life and death through an ancient rite that enabled him to contact entities older than time itself, and he promises Daniel that he can have his deceased child back if he is first willing to die. Maggie appears and stabs Daniel, but he survives the injury. Powell then appears before the triangle, now skinless and partly mutated, as Maggie kneels before him. He recites a dark incantation, causing a now terrified Maggie's torso to violently explode, giving bloody birth to a fully formed monstrosity, the Sarah creature. Vincent and Simon arrive and engage the powerful creature in a desperate battle. It overpowers Vincent, but in its final moments, he covers it in isopropyl alcohol, allowing Simon to sacrifice them both by igniting them with a flare. Powell tells Daniel he can be reunited with Allison in the afterlife if he simply stops resisting and lets go. Daniel defiantly refuses and tackles Powell, sending both men tumbling into a void of nothingness. Meanwhile, the burning Sarah creature pursues the sole survivor, Simon, who escapes and is miraculously teleported back to the hospital lobby to reunite safely with Kim. In a final haunting image, Daniel and Allison are shown reunited, holding hands in a serene but alien world beneath a massive black pyramid, while the ultimate fate of Dr. Powell is left a mystery. Now to let us move on to some trivia about the film The Void and learn some things about the behind the scenes, the production, and the actors. Hardly anything in the film is CGI. All the monsters, gore, etc. are real effects created by the team behind the movie. And we explained that, they got that all through funding, I think they did Indiegogo, I'm pretty sure. And then they worked on Suicide Squad, and they got those guys who, they won an Oscar for that. I mean, I can't believe that Suicide Squad won an Oscar, because that movie was such, garbage. But you know what? They did prove that they were able to make, good visual effects with, real effects, real creature effects, not just CGI everything, which there is a ton of CGI in that movie, but they were really good at their job, and they proved it by winning an Oscar. But the rest of the movie is garbage. But they got those guys to come on and during their off time and which I think is pretty good for them, understanding that not everyone can afford Hollywood effects, especially. I mean, CGI is already an expensive thing, and having these real creature effects is another thing. That's a whole nother ballpark of just expense that, for most of us who are out here, making film and who make movies, or who make, any shorts, music videos, who make anything you can think of, it's hard to, afford any kind of special effects. If it's real effects, if it's computer effects, if anything beyond just what you can do yourself. Even if you're pretty good at it, sometimes it could look a little wonky because you don't have the top tier, computer system, or something that runs a higher graphics ability or something, or even just the masks you're able to get, or the makeup you're able to afford isn't crazy high standards. Sometimes you can do a lot with a little. I've been able to do a lot with a little too, but I feel like they were able to prove themselves, show how ambitious they were, and it proved for the better that these people came on and were like, yeah, we'll come on and help you guys during our off time as much as we can. It's said that the creature design was influenced by John Carpenter's The Thing, and also contains obvious plot references to John Carpenter's 80s apocalyptic horror gem, Prince of Darkness. The similarities between the two films can be seen in the idea of characters under siege by a cult in a confined environment containing a supernatural entity and a portal to another world, and a lead character sacrificing themselves by pushing the evil entity back through said portal. And honestly, yeah, you could just feel that this was influenced by John Carpenter, in just the score, in the feel of the cinematography at some points. It's not very Carpenter, but there's certain shots here and there where you're like, yeah. And yeah, you can totally tell this is influenced by The Thing. I think most post The Thing, when you're talking about Lovecraftian, cosmic horror, things like that, I think most things are influenced by The Thing. When it comes to that kind of stuff, I think The Thing set such a high standard of this is how it's done, guys. This is how you create monster effects that are gonna be top tier. And yeah, and also I love that they took from Prince of Darkness. I mean, they didn't take this isn't a remake of Prince of Darkness or anything, but yeah, there are similarities. The Prince of Darkness is set in a church. It's about college kids who are studying this kind of eclipse that's gonna happen, and just at the same time they discover something inside the church, which is supposed to be the essence of evil. It's it's a whole different thing, but there are a lot of similarities now that I think about it. Now that I read this, but yeah, like that they're under siege by a cult, but like the cult is made up of like homeless people in Prince of Darkness. They're confined to one environment with a supernatural entity. Yeah. There's a portal to another world, and that's kind of like spoilers. I think I might review Prince of Darkness later, because it's such a great film. But yeah, I mean, I think that the similarities are there enough. I don't think it's not the same in any way, but yeah, I mean, you could just feel that like Carpenter really. I mean, Carpenter has a real profound effect on most people who make horror. I mean, even more so now, I think, because people grew up with those films for so long, and you can just see it in the way that they direct and the way that they get their cinematographer to light certain things, to shoot certain things, certain angles, certain depths of field, or just things here and there. You can just tell it's like, I especially think like when they use like that kind of synthy score, that's definitely a Carpenter thing. Near the beginning, a patient is watching Night of the Living Dead, which was directed by George A. Romero. Kenneth Welsh and Kathleen Monroe both starred in Survival of the Dead, also directed by George A. Romero. And Kenneth Welsh, who portrays Dr. Powell, is also in a remake of one of Carpenter's films, The Fog, and is a supporting character of two films with Kurt Russell, who starred in Carpenter's The Thing, Miracle, and The Artist of the Steel. Now, is that all coincidence? Yes. But I think it's just crazy how like things overlap in like certain funny ways. Sometimes, especially like with, George A. Romero, like doing Night of the Living Dead, and then the consequence of not properly copywriting that, allowing for that to now be in pretty much any movie ever. Like, there's so many horror movies that just throw it in there because they can. It's such a classic unto its own right, and it's so good, and it's like it's like you get this free, like, great, like, standard of like a horror film that you can just put in your movie with no consequence. And then the fact that, like, hey, years later, before he passed away, unfortunately, George A. Romero, directed like these actors who would end up to go be in this film, The Void, which also shares similarities with The Thing. And then also, it turns out like one of the actors that was there in that film from George A. Romero happened to star along with Kurt Russell, who was in The Thing and also was in a remake of one of Carpenter's films. It's like all these like kind of like weird little things that just kind of melt down to, okay, so what? It's like, I don't know, maybe it just means something. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's like, it's just funny when I love when like certain people are like just there like all the time, and like it's like this one actor just connects back to, it's like the 6 degrees, but it's like it's all the one person like connecting it all back into like a circle. It's just kind of funny to me that like that happened, and like that it's like all these like different things just happen to come together, and it's weird and strange, and yeah, like you said, doesn't really mean anything, but it just happens. The filmmakers say they intentionally leave the Black Pyramid and much of the cult a mystery for viewers to use their own imaginations and create their own explanations and theories, which I love, because it really does leave you with a like, well, then what is the pyramid? What is that? Is that, and then like, where did the void take them? Is it into somewhere in space? Is it somewhere outside of space? Is it like, if you're going with like the Stephen King route of like Lovecraft, like that kind of cosmic Lovecraftian horror, where it's like, is it like outside of the universe, like in like the macroverse? Is it more Lovecraftian, where it's just like somewhere cosmically out in space. That's where it originates from, or something. Like is the pyramid itself an entity? Is it like a spaceship? Because it does kind of just hover there, but like why, right? And then like how are they able to channel this into mutating people, metamorphosizing people? It's I love that idea of just like, but that's of of the ambiguity, and like your mind can make up more and crazier things than like anything that they could have come up with. Anything that they could have come up with could have been dumb. You could have just sat there and been like that. Well, that's stupid. Or if they showed you what it was, like exactly, maybe you would have been like, that looks dumb, or oh, that was a little disappointing, or maybe even like maybe you would have liked it, or maybe you would have been like happy that they would have shown more. But then you're like, well, that's it. I don't have to worry about it or think about it anymore, and that kind of sucks too, because then you just stop thinking about that film. And I love when it gives you just enough to make you think about it, but then see then I'm thinking about it more, and then I'm constantly like, wow, man, the void. So, and I'll talk about it in my final thoughts, but it just makes you think so much more about like this world and like what they could do in this world. Like just like with Aaron Moorhead and what's this? Justin Benson, and they create these worlds where they are connected, and they expand on them here and there, and it's they give you just enough that it's just like, God, I want more. And the same with this. Like, I would love to have seen like even anything that's remotely connected. Like, you don't even have to give me a sequel or a prequel, just something that like shows like, oh man, that cult is still there, or like, oh, it's related to that cult, or it's even related to whatever that cosmic thing is, or maybe that space, or we get to see like a character. Like, I love that. That's what I love in like when films do that. But let's get into my final thoughts on The Void. All right, so The Void, man, I remember seeing this film and just being like, yes, I want more of this. I just want them to give me more of this. Like, it's taking like things from like Hellraiser and things from like John Carpenter, and like mashing those together and giving me something like that. Like, it feels like if David Cronenberg were to direct a John Carpenter interpretation of Hellraiser. Like, it gives you like such like immense, like, I don't know, like it's like it's like the effects of the creatures are awesome, and it makes you question like all of like your sanity. I love there's a part where like, I mean, it opens awesome, where it's just like this kind of like, it's in medias or whatever, however you say it, where it's in the middle of the action, like the story's already happening as we come in, right? Like, they're already doing something. They shoot the girl. They shoot at James as he's running away. They burn her, and you're already like, what the fuck? You think those guys are bad? You think that guy's like something? But then we learn that like some kind of cult or something. And then, we get straight into like, when I rewatched it, I was like, man, I forgot how straight into this we get. Like, from there, like it picks straight into like, we see Kim with Cliff in his room, but then like she leaves, and then like basically like right after that, that's when the other nurse Beverly, like kills him, and is like ripping off her face. She's like, oh, this isn't my face. Crazy already. And I love that we just get right into it. Like, we don't need to sit here and build up like who these people are, why they're like, we get to learn that as the story goes, and it's good. And I like the way that they do it. And like I said, the effects great, especially when the start, like we start getting into like the creature just comes out of nowhere with like the Beverly metamorphosizing or whatever. And then I love there's a scene where they go to try and get the shotgun from the car, and they go and like the car's like now like what, like I'm almost a mile away, like, and they're like, I thought you said it was nearby, and he's like, it was, but like it's not that they moved the vehicle, it's just that the way that the space around them is now warping from opening this void, or the space is now warping reality. That's awesome. I think that like, and we get to see that, and then the cult keeping them there. Like I like that. Like you can't say like, oh, why don't they just leave? Like there's something there to keep them there too. Like I like that. I like that they give you a reason like why they can't just leave. They try and, you know, call out. They can't. They try and use the radio. It's still not working. It's because, like I said, this place is just like warping the world around them. Man, the actors do a pretty good job too. I think the guy who plays what's his name, Welsh, who plays Dr. Powell, I think he does a really good job. Aaron Poole does, I think he does fine. I think everyone else does pretty good. But like you can just tell that most everything was put in, and I think I mean, for what they got to work with, I mean they do pretty good. I'm not like trying to say like, oh, that they like anybody was like, oh man, that those actors were stupid. No, like they do a pretty solid job. That I don't think they had like, they didn't have anything more to do. They didn't have anything less to do. They had enough with what they were given. And I think like just like this idea of like this like secret cult that can summon, as long as like you like kill yourself type of thing, where you can like conquer death and life and whatever, like, and then the way he just looks like this flayed creature, and he's changed and he's able to bring back his daughter, but she's now like a monstrous version of herself, and he's just okay with that. And oh god, man, it feels so good. Like it just like I love like this idea of like, you know, like trying to give us something of like beyond what we can, like in the Mouth of Madness or The Thing, or, and those are more just John Carpenter, just more John Carpenter movies. But beyond that, like Hellraiser, where like Hellraiser 2, especially when they get into the Leviathan, and it's just the space that's just beyond, that's there, and you know there's these cosmic weird entity things that are just there, and like it's like, why, where are they from, why are they here, what do they want from us, like how old are they, like what are they doing, like it's just like all these questions that just are so beyond us, right? Like, and that's one thing why I think I love like cosmic horrors, because it's like this ever like hole that you just fall into, that like a void that you just can fall into, that there's just so many questions all the way down that your mind is just like driven insane. And like, oh, like the color outside of space, like why does it happen? Because this thing sends this comet or this meteorite, and it just happens to have the power of whatever, and it's just warping reality and distorting everything. And that, to me, that's crazy. That's awesome. Or just like in The Thing, like it doesn't, all it wants to do is survive and consume, right? It's a monster, or not, it's not a monster, it's like an animal, right? It just needs to survive, and survival is assimilating everything into it. And in order to do that, sometimes it has to become a monster. It has to become something that's otherworldly, that we've never seen, that's beyond our comprehension, and will just drive us mad once we see it. And I just, man, this movie just, it's short, but it's like to the point, and it gives you enough that you're not like, well, I'm gonna poke holes in the logic here because this no. They give you they give you sufficient enough of the story of like what's happening, of what's the lore and what this entity, this that he's channeling, that the doctor's channeling to bring about the resurrection of the dead cult members, to bring about the resurrection of his daughter into this, but the way it has to do it is like this monster now, this Sarah creature thing that gets birthed, and in order to become or to do it, he has to become a monster himself. He has to flay himself. It also kind of reminds me of if anyone's seen the newer version of Suspiria, if you've seen the remake, the ending to that, it kind of reminds me of that as well at the end, because the original Suspiria is those two Suspiria movies are very different. They're both amazing if you haven't seen those, but the newer one's more, I would say, more leans into the cosmic horror, that kind of Lovecraftian horror, rather than the original ones, more witches and magic and stuff. Whimsy. Ooh, it's not whimsical at all, but you know what I mean. Like it's more magical and fairy tale and witchy, whereas the remake is not that. The remake is more like demonic and satanic and more monstrous and Lovecraftian, more cosmic kind of horror. It leans that way more. But the ending kind of reminds me of that too. Maybe that's where Luca Guadagnino kind of got that from. When he watched The Void and was like, yeah, I guess I could do this. I guess we can make it this. No, I'm just joking. I don't know, maybe he has seen this, but they are very similar in certain ways. But honestly, I give this a 5 out of 5. This movie is just so good. It's, like I said, it's paced really well. The acting's done pretty good. Direction's really good. The effects, I think, elevated even more. The music or the soundtrack is really good. I always love synth. Anything that's going to give me some synths, that's always going to get me. But I just love that idea. It's just like I said, I love the idea of like, like this space opens up in the hospital that leads into a whole cavernous world of beyond, where like it's physically impossible for that space to exist there. And the fact that it's also like warping reality or kind of around it, it's causing people to become monstrous, that like become monsters and stuff. It's everything that I love. And honestly, would love to see something more in this world. I know that they went, I think it's Steven Kostanski. He went on to do PG, Psycho Gorman. And Psycho Gorman, if you haven't seen that, I think I want to review that soon too. But that movie is hilarious, and that uses a lot of just like real creature effects, no CGI. And then he also did Freddy Freaker or Freddy Freako or something. I want to watch that. It looked pretty good. Same thing, like he uses a lot of like real like effects, like more puppety, more like just no CGI whatsoever. And Psycho Gorman is not only hilarious, but it's like the same thing where it gives you something like, I don't know, like it reminds me of like if Power Rangers was done by like John Carpenter or something. Like you can just tell like he's really inspired by like John Carpenter. But who isn't, right? But yeah, that's my thoughts on The Void. Did you like The Void? What'd you think of the creature effect? Would you kill yourself to bring your daughter creature back? I don't think it's worth the mess. We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. If you have any personal or fictional, paranormal, supernatural, or unexplainable stories, we'd love to read them on the podcast. Please send your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show more support, you can follow our socials on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, or check out our YouTube channel, all at Horrorbox Podcast on all sites. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It really helps out. Until next time, don't summon Lovecraftian beings. This is Dom, signing off from the Horrorbox.
Shit, I forgot about you.
Do something! Fucking do it! Do it! Oh my God, please! Do something! Fucking do it! Help me!
What is that?
I think there's Beverly.